Hello everybody, Dr. Koch here, and I just wanted to pop in and give you a little visual for something that I usually explain in classes. Obviously our classes look a little bit different right now. We're not able to be right there where I can grab a couple of students to use for this demonstration. So instead I thought that I would just kind of talk you through it. In the past, I have written an article about it, so I will also link that article if you would like to read it. But if you want to hear it, here's another option for you. So right behind me, you will notice that I have a fabulous child who's hanging out at his workspace. I am homeschooling my son right now because of COVID, and he has epilepsy, so he's having his typing and English time right now. Just finished writing a really nice few paragraphs, and now he's typing it out for his typing lesson today. So so that's why he's kind of hanging out behind me, and I thought I would just give you a little bit of information about explaining extra help in the classroom. One thing that I learned being an educator for the years that I have been is that it's really hard for some students to understand why some kids get extra help and why others don't. So, and that's a very legit question, a very legit feeling. So what I always do is I use the money hanging from the ceiling analogy, okay? So what I want you to do is I want you to imagine that in a room there are $2 bills hanging from the ceiling. They're hanging at the same height, okay? What I would do in my classroom is I would choose two students, one who is noticeably and majorly taller than the other student, okay? That tall student would be able to reach the dollar bill without any problem, okay? The other student would clearly have a harder time. Now, I always ask my students, would you be willing to help me with this situation? I've never had a student not willing to help, even when I explain what it is that I'm going to be doing, because I am using their heights as examples. So what I would do is I have two students, those two students that I chose, one who is much taller than the other, stand underneath those dollar bills. Okay, I always count down and I say, on the count of three, count up, I guess. On the count of three, I want you to grab the dollar bill hanging from the ceiling, and whichever one of you gets to the dollar bill faster than the other gets to keep both dollar bills. Okay, so I would count 1, 2, 3. And you can just imagine that the student who is much taller than the other obviously gets to his or her dollar bill much faster than the other student. The other student may not have even been able to get to the dollar bill. Now, because the one student was born much taller than the other student, that student gets all. The other student gets nothing. Does that seem fair to you? It's the student who's shorter, it's his or her fault that they're shorter, correct? Not correct. So let's look at it like this, okay? This time, I would go ahead and hang the dollar bills back up at the same level. This time, I'm going to give the student who is a little bit shorter than the other student a chair that I'm going to allow him or her to stand on. This time, I change the rules and I say, okay, on the count of 3, reach for a dollar bill. Whichever dollar bill or whoever gets to it gets to keep their own dollar bill. 1, 2, 3, they both reach up. The student who is taller is able to grab the dollar bill alone. The student who is shorter, because standing on a chair, is also able to access his or her own dollar bill. They each get to keep one. That seems a little bit more fair, right? Is it equal? No, it's not equal. Is it fair? Yes, it's fair. Because it is not the fault of the shorter student that he or she was born much smaller than the other student. Disabilities work in the classroom this exact same way. Sometimes we need to give a student a chair to allow him or her to access learning in the same way that every other student is able to access learning. We all deserve to be able to learn. It's just that sometimes we have to give some students a chair to be able to get to his or her own learning level. That's how I explain getting extra help in the classroom. Okay? There are some students who are high ability learners who have to be challenged much more. Those students don't get a chair. In fact, sometimes we may even put in more challenges that he or she would need to overcome in order to get to his or her learning level. We have to do what we have to do for each individual student. I hope that this helped you understand getting extra help in the classroom. Feel free to use it in any classroom with any student. I think it's all about helping each other understand that we're all born differently, beautifully. Sometimes we just need a little bit of a different direction or different levels of help. All right, I love you. Goodbye.